Oh yes,
As it was,
it's
please.
coming in 3, 2, 1. On the air with FDT-TV, the premier West Ham and Arsenal football podcast, brought to you every Monday by Michael Hawes and Ian Varker. Helps if I press the right button this time. We are now recording with some audio, so that is a very good sign. Not only for me, but also for Mike, because we did sort of just do about 4 minutes with no audio at all. But that being said, it is 2022 and we are back. How was your Christmas? We're going to do it again. How was your Christmas and New Year, Mike?
Oh, mate, it's busy. It's very busy. Nice to see the family, travelling around. Had to go back to work though, which was really good. Nice little break from everything that was going on. How was yours?
Yeah, very much the same, mate. Very busy, and then went back to work, which was busier than it's ever been before in the time that I've worked there. And then you never guess what happened on New Year's Eve. Like the dog jumped on the table.
Nah, I would have
Like he's on ice skates and went round these.
Knowing the size of your dog as well, I'd love to say.
So put him away, right? He didn't know what he'd done wrong because he was giggling the whole time.
There we go.
There you go. That's what you missed out on.
Spot on.
Long story short, but as I said just before that, West Ham have sort of found a little bit of form again after their Boxing Day failure against Southampton, and Arsenal have continued their form, or good form, from that of relegation fodder that they were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, to be honest, mate, I'm still not too confident about finishing in the top four. If I'm being completely honest, I mean, it would be an improvement from eighth, possibly top six, top four, with the teams that we've got around us. Obviously, your Manchester United, Spurs, yourselves. I think it's going to be one of the more difficult ones to call the top six this year than it has previously been. Obviously, Manchester City running away with the league at the moment. Chelsea not too far behind. Liverpool as well are still up there. And I think that Man City, I think, are going to win it.
Yep.
But I do think, obviously, Chelsea and Liverpool are going to fight it out amongst themselves. I know we have got to play them again a couple of times, or not a couple of times. We have got to play them again later on in the season. So it would be a good testament to see again where we are in the grand scheme of things, and we could cause some upsets between those teams. But obviously, we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah. And it's all sort of going to be a bit of a shake-up because obviously the transfer window is open. We've seen some teams sign some players. We've seen some teams linked with millions of players, as with Arsenal and West Ham. But as of yet, all quiet on the transfer front.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the AFCON, Africa Confederations Cup, whatever it's called, is going on. So there will be a number of players that are leaving, namely Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, Rama. I don't know who's going from Arsenal. I'm sure there's a few.
Aubameyang, Thomas Partey, Sambi Lokonga. No, he's from Belgium.
Wilf Zaha probably will be going. The people who won't be going all play for Watford. And Watford have essentially said, nah, you can get out of it. We ain't sending our players in the middle of the season. Which, fair enough. Especially with the performance of Dennis. He's been flying recently. And if he continues it, I imagine he'll probably end up somewhere rather larger than Watford going forward. But
what is your take on that? I want to ask you your take on that about a club that's preventing a player going to represent their country. I can imagine it. Obviously, they're the people that are paying his wages or paying their wages and stuff like that. But denying someone an opportunity to go and represent their country, it doesn't kind of sit well with me. No. I suppose it depends on how vital they are to the team, but I suppose I've kind of answering my own question here is that depending on squad depth and on all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. If you're in great form for the Premier League, do you want to leave? I think possibly conversations will have been had behind the scenes with the players to say, this is what we're going to do. What do you think? I think if the player really protested, they'd probably be let go because actually that's easier than keeping them when they want to play elsewhere at that time. But yeah, it's a hard one. It's a
Mm.
hard one. It's an odd timed competition, but when you look at the rest of the leagues sort of around Europe, there are lots of breaks this time of year, so it makes sense for it to happen at that point.
Mhm.
The interesting thing will be, well, say it will be the World Cup next year, or this year,
Yep.
in fact, because it's 2022 now.
Yeah, boy.
Because that's going to happen in winter, so there will be a winter break from the Premier League. Um, I think it would have been interesting to see what would happen if you just sort of played through. Because all the big clubs lose all their players and have to forfeit every match. It'd be great.
End up with like some third string team.
Yeah, that's it. Just for 6 weeks.
That's what they got squad numbers for.
Exactly. You say all this thing about registering 174 players for homegrown status and stuff. It's all one of those things. But I think what's probably the best thing to do is to start off with is the predictions, because we made some predictions.
Yep.
Obviously a little while ago now, because they were before Christmas that we made them. We missed obviously a few games because of this week. Don't know if you realised, and then we can carry on with good form with the FA Cup and the Premier League fixture this week.
Yep, no worries at all. So we've got just a recap of the last predictions. This is how far back it's going. Arsenal played Sunderland in the Carabao Cup. Tottenham versus West Ham in the Carabao Cup. West Ham versus Southampton, and Norwich versus Arsenal. So it's the Boxing Day fixtures, I believe, or just after Christmas, and the League Cups just before. So just going back to the Arsenal versus Sunderland game, obviously you made a prediction of 1-0 to Sunderland, and I made a 3-1 prediction. The score was 5-1, so obviously I get a point for the correct result, obviously not the correct score. So 1 point to me, 0 to you. Tottenham versus West Ham, you had 2-1, I had 2-0, and as we know the score was 2-1, so well done for that one. So 3 points to you and 1 point to me for the correct result. West Ham versus Southampton, 0-0 was your prediction, 1-1 was mine. Southampton ended up winning 3-2, so no points for either of us there. And then Norwich versus Arsenal, you had 5-0, I had 3-0. Obviously, the score was 5-0, so it's 3 points to you and 1 point to me. So a cracking week for you, me old chap. So 6 points to you and 3 points to me. So the score for the season so far, Ian, you are now currently leading on 30 points, and I'm... I would say coming up the rear, but that sounds rather disgusting. Yes, I'm currently in second. Yeah, I'm second. I'm not losing. I'm second.
You're second. With how many points?
28.
So it's still reasonably close. Still all to play
Yes.
for. It's a lot closer than it has been in recent seasons. But we do have a few fixtures to predict. So the first being a Premier League fixture between the mighty Arsenal, who host Liverpool.
It's the Carabao Cup.
Is that the Carabao Cup? Is it?
Carabao Cup semi-final, mate.
Oh,
Leg
okay.
1.
Okay, my mistake.
Yeah.
It's not a Premier League fixture. It's 2 cup fixtures, or 3 cup fixtures,
Yes.
in fact. But yeah, so go on. What's your take on that?
Just to recap, the game against Man City. Obviously, that was the most recent fixture for us. I thought we gave a good account of ourselves. Possibly a bit unfortunate, as we'll come on to a bit later on in the podcast. But I think if we can put together more displays like that, maybe not so much in conceding a penalty and getting a man sent off, but in terms of the work rate, I think we could give Liverpool a game. I'm interested to see how they're going to approach this game. Obviously, becoming to the latter stages of the competition, it's a chance for any one of the 4 teams to pick up some silverware, which I think for us is vitally important this year. As I mentioned at the start of the season, I think a top 4 place with a piece of silverware or a domestic trophy would be a good season for us. So I would like to say that we will go out with quite a strong team. Again, you have mentioned about the AFCON Cup, so obviously there are going to be players missing from both squads. I think it's going to affect Liverpool more than it will Arsenal, which may turn in our favour. So, and because we are, and the defeat against Manchester City was the first defeat at home in a long time for us, and I think we could potentially get back to winning ways. where am I going to go? Do you know what? I'm going to be confident about this one. I'm going to go for 3-1 Arsenal.
3-1 Arsenal, very good. We'll say Gabriel, his card will carry over because it was he got 2 yellows, didn't he? So he'll be banned for this one. But so as you said, Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah, Naby Keita not in the squad for Liverpool potentially, which makes them much weaker. I think who they replace him with, what Jota comes in, you'd say Origi and Firmino up front. So arguably less potent of a strike force. I do think they're going to nick an early one, but I think you'll overcome it. I'm going to go 2-1 to Arsenal.
You just reminded me, actually, there's Jota's still available. So can I change my score to 3-2, or do I have to go with my...
No, you can change it. I don't care. I'm in the lead. I just,
Right.
I just ridicule you if you if it comes in.
All right. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with 3-2 on that one. So going back, I think this next one's an FA Cup game for,
It is, yes.
you guys.
It is.
We
host Leeds.
West Ham versus Leeds.
Yeah. Well, obviously we're back to winning ways and being massive. All is right in the world. And Leeds are still going through arguably one of the worst injury crises of recent memory. And their games are not allowed to be postponed like everyone else because they've got legitimate injuries rather than sort of a fake COVID. Yeah, so I think we're gonna win this. I think we'll probably play some youngsters. I think Harrison Ashby might come in, but again, he's been really good when he's been playing. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 2-0 to West Ham.
To be honest, mate, I literally was just thinking that scoreline for myself, but obviously just to mix things up a bit. Obviously, we will see some rotated squads for West Ham. Obviously, I think their focus is going to be more on the league this year. I wouldn't be surprised if you got to the 4th or 5th round, and that's when we see West Ham taking an exit from the FA Cup. But I'm going to go for 2-1 on this one.
2-1, fair enough.
Just spice it up a bit.
And that leads last, but certainly not least, Nottingham Forest versus Arsenal.
Yes, again, I think it's another chance. Just from looking at the team that played against Sunderland, again, it was a much rotating squad. We did see. I pretty much called the team selection for that. So we did see Balogun coming in, the likes of Mohamed El Neni and all players. So again, I wouldn't be surprised to see something very similar, depending on the team that we put out against Liverpool. I think possibly we'll go for a stronger team against Liverpool and a rotated squad against Nottingham Forest. But I think potentially they're going to be good value for money, just because obviously we are playing away, and I think this trophy means a lot more for the teams in lower divisions than it does for the teams in the Premier League. Not trying to devalue the FA Cup by any means, because we are one of the most successful teams in the FA Cup. But I think with the squad rotation, I mean, we did give a good account of ourselves against Sunderland. I think they played well for the first kind of like 10-15 minutes. We scored and gave them a bit of a sucker punch, but obviously they come back into it, and then we just kind of seem to run riot. And I think I want to be confident and say that we will see something similar to this. I think it'll be a bit more of a challenge, but I'm going to go for a 4-1.
Oh, almost the same as what I was going to say. I was going to go 4-0, but I'm not. I'm going to change it. I do think you're right. Nottingham Forest at home, they're going to be up for it. It's the biggest game in a long time for them. So that will make it more difficult. It's currently sitting 9th in the Championship, not pulling up trees, but not in any danger. I think they've got 9 wins, 7 draws, and 9 losses. Well, in fact, I know that. I just looked it up. I think because they'll be up for it, it will be a bit more of a challenge. I'm going to go 3-1 to Arsenal. I was going to go 4-0, but then I thought about it. So I mean, my gut instinct didn't serve me too badly last week, so maybe I should have gone with it. But hey ho, that's what it is. But yeah, they're our fixtures for this week. So if you haven't already, then go over to the YouTube channel, subscribe to it, and leave your predictions in the comment section below. We always like to have a look, see what other people have thought. But it's a new year, so that means there's a new intro. What it also means is VAR hasn't fucking changed. So without further ado, let's roll the intro. So we did have just then the VAR intro. If you didn't realise already, VAR is a pile of shit. Let's not beat around the bush. We had the squiggly lines that are drawn on the pitch. We had the footballs. We had Mike screaming, and we just had everyone going no. And if you didn't realise, there was a hidden little joke in there. For all of you paying attention, how long VAR takes. But a few incidents of note this week, Mike. I think first of all we should start with the Arsenal game against Manchester City. So Manchester City got a penalty, which was converted. Was it? Or was it converted? It was converted, wasn't it? And then Arsenal went for a penalty. Talk us through it. Obviously, we've got a picture of it. Talk us through it.
Yeah. Right. So this happened, I think, within the first 15 minutes of the game for the penalty shout for us. At that particular point, I think we'd sustained around about 7 or 8 minutes of pressure onto Manchester City. The threat was coming. We could definitely see that we were up for this particular game. It was a lovely through ball. I can't remember who played the ball through, but Martin Ødegaard running through to try and retrieve the ball, scooped it in, or tried to scoop round the ball with his left foot, and Edison are coming in, and in fact, I'm not even going to say what would seem like, because you can see from some of the videos and the different angles that somehow people have managed to get hold of, that actually Edison didn't touch the ball at all as well. He took through Martin Ødegaard and committed a foul. It went to VAR, was checked for about 2 minutes. Apparently they'd had a look at 10, or they checked it about 10 times, and ultimately come to the decision that it was inconclusive, and therefore the decision not to award the penalty was given. And we ultimately paid for that, but that would have taken us into a nice little 1-0 win. Later on in the game, I think it was not Bruno Fernandes. What was his name? I can't remember his fucking name. It was the Manchester City guy, Bruno something.
Bruno. You got Silva.
Silva. That's his name, Bernardo Silva.
That's it.
So he went into the penalty box. Granite Xhaka special, but I think it was a bit unfortunate because whilst there was some slight contact, in fact, I don't even think it made contact with his leg. Bernardo Silva was on his way down, and Granit Xhaka's obviously then grabbed hold of his shirt, but obviously he's then felt the contact, exaggerated the going down, and the penalty was given. I think from most Arsenal fans, you would feel cheated by this outcome, but I suppose in one sense you could look at that decision and say he's pulled his shirt in the box, regardless of whether he's going down or not. That is committing a foul. So I can't be too annoyed with that one, but I suppose from one aspect of it, because he's already going down, you do feel kind of cheated, because if it wasn't for the shirt pull, he would be going down, and there's no contact made. But the ref was actually encouraged to go and have a look at this one on the pitch side monitor,
Yep.
and can't work out as to why
Didn't
that
give
was
it.
given, and there was no kind of encouragement for the ref to go and have a look at the decision, and therefore, yeah, they obviously converted, grabbed a very late winner. We were down to 10 men, so played the majority of the second half with 10 men. I think we gave a good account for ourselves,
Yeah.
but once again, it shows the inconsistencies of VAR, and yeah, it can suck my balls.
Well, I think from the picture that we've got on the screen of obviously Edison taking out Odegaard, the ball is nowhere to be seen in Edison's challenge. And the thing that does it for me is the look on Nathan Ake's face, Bernardo Silva's face, and Ruben Diaz's face. They're all like, because they know that's a penalty. Obviously, it wasn't given, but this is now the second time in almost as many weeks that we've seen Edison take out a player and get away with it. Now, I'm not saying there's big club favouritism or potentially even worse than that, but it seems a bit fishy to me.
But there's big club favouritism.
Yeah, yeah. So, but again, it's a decision that has affected the result of the game. If obviously you hadn't have, or you had have got the penalty, you may have missed it. There is that, but not 9 times out of 10 the penalty goes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difficult. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to fix it because they're clearly not interested in it anymore.
And I think one of the most infuriating things is that you can see ex-players and pundits confirming that it should be this. It should have been given for XYZ reason.
Yes,
Not just specifically this decision. There have been multiple decisions that VAR has got incorrectly, or the match officials have got incorrect. And when you're taking into account these people are ex-professionals or current professionals, depending on who's the pundit at the time, that there needs to be something taken into account for that. When you've got referees basically licking each other's asses, or not, or too scared to override a senior match official, then there's something wrong.
yes,
There's definitely something wrong, and until the officials receive further training, or we just completely scrap the current officials and get new officials coming in, it's going to be someone else's. The problems are still going to continue. I think one of the things that needs to be kind of addressed is the whole consistency thing.
yes,
Is that, again, you can, I've said it before, you've said it before, everyone's kind of said it before. It all comes down to an interpretation of the current footage that's in front of you. 4 out of 5 people could look at something and say, no, that's wrong. And then you've got one person that says, no, well, that's right because of this reason. It's all subjective.
yes.
Sometimes it's not subjective. Obviously, when you look at that decision specifically, there's nothing subjective about it. It's incorrect. It's an incorrect decision. You can see that Edison has fouled Martin Odegaard.
Yes.
There's nothing subjective about it at all. And again, when you're looking at pundits, ex-professionals that are saying that's wrong, that should have been given, and then you get some twat that goes, oh no, it's not been given because of this reason, blah, blah, blah. Then they need to receive further education or take training from somewhere else because it's wrong.
Here's the thing, right? Is I had a look on the Premier League website because I thought maybe they've released a statement because there has been a lot of uproar and a lot of controversy in recent weeks. They haven't released a statement or changed anything about VAR since June of 2020. Might be July of 2020. And one of the things there is it says obviously it's not 100% accurate, which is silly because it's a video referee, so it should be 100% accurate. But also, it does state quite clearly on there as one of their 5 or 6 points that the decision will be given to the on-field official to make. Now, that means, and there's certain criteria for that: red card offences, fouls in the penalty box, things like that, handballs. If the referee should be going over to that little screen every time, not sometimes, not when you think, oh, it could be. Every time, it should be. You need to look at this one. We'll put it on the screen for you. Simple as, and let him make the decision himself, because then you haven't got to overrule an on-field official, because he can overrule himself. As you see, some of them have done. But why are they only encouraging sometimes to go over to the screen? I know there's a thing about taking too long. It shouldn't take too long. You run over, you look at that from one angle, and you go, he's not got nothing at the ball. He's only taken a player penalty. It's a 30 seconds. Well, it's not. It's as long as it takes you to run over to the screen decision. You know what I mean? But moving on to controversial decision number 2. Now, cast your mind back only a few weeks, Mike, and we had a podcast that was entitled "Mane from the Top Rope." Again, we see him with one of his flying elbows. So we've put that on the screen on Aspilicueta in the 37th second or something. He goes in with a flying elbow. When you look at the video of it, he looks at Aspilicueta, elbows him, and then jumps. So quite clearly, he knows the player's there, and he's intentionally elbowed him in the head. He got a yellow for it. But having been known to be a player who likes to elbow other people in the head, surely that's endangering a player, and therefore is a straight red.
Completely agree. This is a player that we've seen also often commit fouls against us in recent times. Obviously, the elbow on Kieran Tierney, not last season, possibly the season before, might have even been the start of last season. And I can't remember who was the other player come flying in for. It was either it might have actually been the last game that we played against Liverpool, where we received an absolute drubbing from him. But again, I kind of sit on the fence with this one a little bit, because I think one of the things you need to take into account is the intent of the player. Now, obviously, for this particular one, obviously you have mentioned there that he's kind of looked at Aspilicueta, thrown the elbow, and then jumped.
Yeah,
and we saw kind of something similar to that against Kieran Tierney. He kind of looked at him, smashed his arm up into his face, and then kind of went to shield the ball again. But I think one of the difficult things that we've got there is proving the intent. Was it an accident? I think both, or in fact, anyone would know. Anyone that's not a Liverpool player or a Liverpool fan, in this particular instance, will look at that decision and go, "That's disgusting," yada yada. But any Liverpool fan would be like, "Well, no, it's just kind of shielding the ball, or you have to use your arms to jump, or some other bullshit like that." So I think for something like that, because there will be that divide, it obviously will then cast that element of doubt, I think, in my opinion, which is why there's always the argument about endangering the player. I mean, if you come through a sliding tackle, your foot knee height or shin height, then you're asking for trouble. That I think is endangering the player, potentially ruining their career depending on the outcome of the challenge. Whereas something like a flailing elbow or something like that, it's, yes, there is a risk of an injury, but it's possibly something, a bit of a magic sponge or a bit of Vaseline or whatever the case may be. It's not going to ruin their careers for that momentary aggression. So for me, you can see why people are arguing against it. Don't get me wrong, but I think from what I've just said, I think a yellow card may have been sufficient.
Okay.
Just my personal opinion.
Fair enough. I think the way to determine it is if you was to run a poll straight away, and do it. I think majority of people will say it's a foul. I think you're right. Liverpool fans will say not a chance. If it was the other way round, they would be calling for Aspilicueta's head, and that's what I think is silly about it. He's unfortunately, we're able to have quite some civil conversations about football. We don't always agree, which is a good thing. That's what football's about. There's a difference of opinions. A lot of football fans you can't have a decent conversation with because they're so single track minded. I'm right. I'm not listening to anyone else, and you can't have a subjective sort of conversation about football, which I think is a real shame.
Hmm.
Um, but maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe there needs to be a panel of three in the VAR room. If they're not going to refer it over to the referees, panel of three, majority wins. There's always going to be a majority, isn't there?
Yep.
And then go straight with that decision. That is what it is. The referee's either right or he's wrong.
Yep.
It's a suggestion. But back to the normal screen, because that's all the controversies I could have thought of this week. There's probably more that we've missed, but obviously Jared Bowen got a goal disallowed for a very light thing. He did kick the bloke in the shin, fair enough, but it was like it wasn't anything major when you look at him in real speed. Um, Obviously, since we last met, West Ham have dropped out of the competition against a Spurs team who struggled to win against us. We have no defence, we had no striker, and we still managed to sort of give it a good go. Now, you mentioned about obviously the resurgence of Tottenham, the resurgence of
Mhm.
Manchester United. We see Manchester United lose last night to Wolves 1-0. Do you think Manchester United got it wrong in not pursuing Conte? And the reason I say that is obviously Ragnick, they've brought in a bloke to go into the backroom staff afterwards as a director of football and do that side of things. So there is obviously a plan now. However, those Manchester United fans or Manchester United players don't seem to have bought into his philosophy because they know he's only going to be there at most a year, 18 months. Now, Tottenham, okay, although they are playing poorly still, you know, at minimum, they are going to be tenacious and they are going to be made to be fit and to chase the ball lots. Um, I think that Tottenham, personally, are going to finish above Manchester United for that exact reason. But what's your take on that?
Again, I mentioned earlier on that they are a team. I suppose I'm a little bit worried about. Obviously, we've got them in a couple of weeks in the North London derby back in the Premier League. I think it's the first Premier League game back for us after these Runner Cup games. I've got to be honest. Because they've got games in hand. I think that's one of the things that's making me kind of worry a little bit. Obviously, again, just going back to the African Cup of Nations, where they're looking to players potentially being absent from that. I can't think of who in the Spurs team would be going to that. But when you look at the likes of Thomas Partey, he's a guy that's kind of grown into the Arsenal squad more so this season than last season. Don't get me wrong, he's still having a few kind of iffy games, but I'd say in the last 3 weeks or so has been his best spell in an Arsenal shirt. So with the likes of Son, Harry Kane, obviously Harry Kane was having a bit of a torrid time at the start of the season. Has kind of picked up a few goals here and there. But again, Spurs, they've had a few hit and miss results recently as well. I do agree with you that I think they will finish above Man United. But there is, I've got to say, a genuine worry that they will finish above us this season.
Yeah.
Just because they've got 2 games in hand over us. They're only 5 points behind us, I believe. So there is a genuine concern.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. They've got 2 games in hand. They're a point behind us, 2 points behind you. If they win both those games in hand, I don't know who they're against. That's the trouble. I don't know. It could be Leicester and Everton. It could be Burnley. With the amount of cancellation, I think one of them is Burnley, isn't it? Because that was postponed for snow. So again, it's one of those things. You know, Burnley's going to be well, not as difficult a game as it has been in recent years, but you know it's going to be a tough physical game. Um, Potentially, they're there. They are there for the taking. I don't think the quality is there in the squad, but I think hard work gets you a long way. It makes up for that lack of talent.
Yep.
And I think in some senses, that's what got Arsenal through was the hard work going in on a training ground. It wasn't always necessarily converting to results at the beginning of the season, but you can see they've been working hard and now they've got a few wins together, and that confidence is meaning that you're playing well. Um,
Hmm.
I just, I can see him getting in the top four, you know,
Yeah.
and that pains me to say because I want to get in the top four. I don't think we will. I think lack of signings and a lack of squad depth has started to show, especially after a few injuries. Um, and the excuses before New Year, the excuses from David Moyes are already coming out. Obviously, we want to get the right players in. We don't just want any player. And that essentially means you're not going to sign anyone. We've seen that the last few years. I get they don't want to pay over the odds, but in the same breath, we've got no defenders, no first team defenders because Zuma's out, O'Connor's out, Cresswell's out, Johnson's just come back, and obviously Soufal is in and out of the team in a minute. Antonio is going off in January to play for Jamaica 3 or 4 times, so that leaves us without a striker. Then Rama's out at AFCON, so we're down to bare bones, you know, and like we've got Vlasic. Okay, scored a goal the other day, but he's not top quality. For now, seems to have fallen off a bit. Ryan Fredericks, Yarmolenko. You know, they're not players you go, oh, get them in the first team. We're gonna run riot with these in the squad. And I fear that a good start to the season and all that hard work will come to absolutely nothing in 6 or 7 weeks.
I think it would be good to revisit this particular conversation in 6 or 7 weeks once we get some of the cup games out of the way and some of these overdue fixtures played out.
Yes.
Because I think once we start getting towards the February March, definitely going to have a better understanding of where teams are going to be. So maybe we kind of put a pin in this conversation right here. And then re-look at it in a few weeks' time and see what going in.
I think you're right. And one more thing of big news: Southampton, who have been known as a selling club, have been taken over by a Serbian tycoon for 100 million quid.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of an odd time to do it. Literally, like the third, fourth day of the transfer window. Usually, they wait till afterwards. But do you see Southampton being worth only a third of what Newcastle was sold for? The reason,
you know what?
I was going to say, the reason I say that is Newcastle. You're buying into the heart of a city, is what I would say. But when you look at Southampton's academy and the players that they've sold over the years, mainly to Liverpool, that's going to keep coming for a while. Yeah, they've got a very good youth set up, Southampton, and for it to only be worth a third, I think either Mike Ashley is phenomenal at business, or the people that bought
Southampton
it may be a little bit, yeah. But yeah, so a third, 100, only 100 million quid.
Do you know? I didn't actually. When I saw that news breaking earlier, I didn't even kind of put it into perspective with the likes of Newcastle and the consortium that took that over. But now you've mentioned it, it does. And that sounds incredible.
Now here's the other thing: would you rather have Southampton Football Club as a whole? So that includes obviously under 18s, under 23s, women's teams, everything like that, stadium, training ground, or would you have Jack Grealish?
Yeah, good point.
They're the same price. What we're saying is Jack Grealish is the equivalent of one Southampton.
FC.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing.
That is mental. an even better analogy than the Newcastle one, I think. That is mental. Absolutely mental.
Good thought. Good thought. I don't want to say football's gone mad, but it's gone mad.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Is what it is. I don't have any more news actually for this week. Considering.
No, me neither. Me neither.
So in that case, then we will leave you right now. And as always, I've been Ian.
I've been Mike.
We've been on the air, and we are FDT-TV, and we will see you next week.
Thanks very much, guys. Happy New Year.